in about a minute. All right. This is Andrew, and I'm going to talk a little bit about. Yesterday, I talked about earnings and EPS change, and I wanted to look at EPS, particularly in Asia and Southeast Asia, to try to understand what's happened from COVID, what's the impact been on earnings per share. If you've got any question along the way, feel free to put that into the chat, and I'll be happy to answer that. And if you've got ideas of other things you'd like me to cover, just let me know. All right, so let's get into it. First, I'm going to start by saying that we're going to be talking about how long does it take Asia to recover from COVID-19. Now, one of the things about Asia that's quite unique, in my opinion, is that we haven't had that much pumping of money into the economies like we did have in the US. And so, governments like Thailand, as an example, where I am, don't have that much money to go pumping into the economy. And if they started to print a lot of their currency, they're going to cause their currency to devalue relative to others because they're not the reserve currency, so they don't get that protection. So let's go through this a little bit. And the first thing is that the economic fallout in Asia was relatively low compared to Europe and US. Basically, China and Taiwan, Taiwan in particular, handled the COVID crisis with a lot less negative impact. In fact, you're going to be shocked with some of the numbers that I'm going to present to you here. So the next one is, I wanted to address two questions, which is which countries were affected the most, and how long does it take to fully recover earnings per share? I'm looking at earnings right now to try to think about this. Now, I'm going to use the data from the website called www.worldometers.info/coronavirus. This is all public information. No conspiracies here. It is just public information that you can find there, but I like to make my own data. Now, the chart I'm going to show you is big, and I'm going to leave it up here. There it is. Now, what I've tried to do in this table is I've tried to look at all the countries in Asia, and then I added the US at the bottom as some information. But the first thing that I did is that this basically is ranked by population. And so what you can see is that the lowest number of deaths in Asia were Mongolia with only 2 deaths from COVID, Taiwan with 8, New Zealand with 25, Singapore with 29, Vietnam with 35, and Thailand with 79. So let's just look at Thailand for a moment, and we can see that 79 deaths out of a population of 70 million. It doesn't even register from a percentage basis. So this is part of the reason why Asia is actually doing pretty well, and why I say that I'm interested in investing more towards Asia than the US. Now, you could say that the US is going to be rebounding, and so yes, there is some argument there that I wouldn't disregard, and I wouldn't say to have no weighting in the US. But my point is that from an economic recovery, it seems pretty good. So the question that I wanted to look at was, okay, what was the economic impact on earnings? But before we look at that, let's look at another measure, which is the percent of deaths in Asia. So all I did is look at the deaths and divide it by the population. And in Taiwan and Vietnam, it doesn't even register, right? Because in Taiwan and Vietnam, we're talking about a tiny number of people who died. In the case of Taiwan, it's 8. In the case of Vietnam, it's 35. And Thailand 0.0001, China 0.0003, Singapore, and then you see the US at 0.138. So you can see that for many countries in Asia, they just really haven't had that much of an impact. So now it's time to look at, oh, it's exciting time. Now what I want to look at, so we've looked at COVID. Now what I want to try to look at is the impact on EPS, on earnings per share. So let's go into that. And here you can see the impact on earnings per share. So all I'm looking at is the world, which is the red one, and then Asia ex Japan. And then you can see ASEAN. Now, what you can see is that actually the world got hit a bit in 2020. EPS did come down pretty significantly, but it came down a lot more in ASEAN. Well, one of the big reasons for ASEAN getting hit so hard is because it's a real tourist destination. And in Thailand in particular, you have a huge amount of income generated by tourism. And so even though many of the listed companies in the market aren't tourist related, it has had an impact on all companies because incomes have just generally been down. And that's different from, let's say, China, where you've had a pretty strong economy. So let's now go in a little bit deeper and look into some countries. So the first thing you can see is that, in fact, China's earnings per share. So what I've done in this case is looked at earnings for each country and rebased it back to 2017 at 100. And then what you can see is that China actually saw its earnings rise in 2020 and continue to rise based upon analysts' expectations. Now, you can also see India pretty much the same. India took a little hit, but not by much. Taiwan also, it rose in 2020. So you can see the impact on Singapore and Thailand, and I also think Indonesia, Philippines, these countries have taken a pretty strong hit. Now, Singapore looks to be back to where it was before the crisis. Let's say by maybe this year or next year. Thailand's still got a little ways to go. And if they don't open up tourism, it's just going to be hard to get back. All right. So what are the key points in the bottom line? Well, Asia handled the crisis better than the rest of the world, mainly supported by China. And ASEAN markets show high economic disruptions, and they're struggling to regain earnings power, mainly in Thailand in particular, and some of the other Southeast Asian countries, it's due to tourism. And you can see emerging Asia, especially China and India, is strong. So what's the bottom line? Increase equity allocation in emerging markets, especially emerging Asia. So that is my thought for today. I'm going to come back and let's just see if I can get myself back up here. All right. And let's just see if we've got any comments. I do see. Yep. So I see Louis says, greetings from Malaysia. And Abiola from Nigeria. Nice to see you. There's Muhammad from Pakistan. And there's Jose. Thanks for teaching in. And there's Kwame from Ghana. Nice to see you. And there's Made from Indonesia. Good to see you. And Dr. Wana Sanan from Thailand. All right, great. Well, it's great to see all of you guys here. Feel free to leave any questions or comments even after I shut down this stream. And if you'd like me to go in and look at some particular companies or stocks or anything like that, it would be my pleasure to do that. And I see we got some greetings from Austria. Yep, awesome. All right, so have a great day. And I'm going to try to do more of these streams and get out there and share some of my wisdom. And for those of you who are in my courses like the Finance Made Ridiculously Simple, you'll recognize the shirt I'm wearing, which is, whoa, my Coffee Works shirt for our Coffee Works business. Hi, Peter. Okay, you guys have a great day, and I'll see you soon.